Is mind over matter real? Can it be proven scientifically? And if so, is there a way that you can utilize that to start creating and manifesting much faster or even heal the human body? My name is Peter Sage, and on this video, I'm going to share with you 3 quick yet powerful keys that will allow you to start manifesting much faster so you can create your reality or heal your body. Now, the first step to manifesting using the mind is to actually recognize it is real and a possibility. It's often said if you believe in magic, you live a magical life. But we need to go more than just an intellectual understanding or some platitude posted on a meme. So let's go over to law and show how every government in the world recognizes this through something called the placebo effect. Yes, we're familiar with that. If you go to the medical profession, you have multi-billion-dollar companies, pharmaceutical companies, that invest hundreds of millions of dollars in getting drugs approved, and the gold standard for that approval rests on their ability to outperform the placebo effect. Now just stop and think about that for a second, because most medical doctors never do. They are given very, very little training and understanding on what the placebo effect is in medical school. It's brushed over. But if you stop and think about it, what it's actually saying in law is that the result can be produced identically or even more so by using the power of the patient's mind, the belief system. Then they don't get the license for the drug. And that's often what happens. If you realize that your mind is primary when it comes to creating an impact on the body. Every thought you think produces a chemical, a biochemistry. In other words, the thoughts are primary and chemistry is secondary. Frequency beats chemistry. If you are driving home from a party, maybe had 1.5 beers, something like that, you know you're under the limit, but kind of that, and you see a blue light in your mirror behind you, what happens to your biochemistry? Heart rate goes up, blood pressure rises, anxiety, cortisol. Now, what caused that? It wasn't the blue light flashing off the rearview mirror through the retina to mess around with your brain. No, it was your thoughts about what happened created massive impact in your biochemistry. Now, if that blue light overtakes you and goes chasing somebody else, you have a different result in your biochemistry. So when you realize that chemistry is at one level, but frequency is at a higher level, in other words, frequency beats chemistry. Mind over matter. If you go to Einstein, he said the sole governing agency of the particle is the field. He didn't say the sole governing agency of the field is the particle. He knew that waves give birth to particles arise from the field. In other words, non-physical matter reality is primary, consciousness is primary, and matter is secondary. It is a subset. So, first step in being able to manifest is to realize that it is possible. Not only possible, it's enshrined in law as a phenomena. Now, if you really want to look at that in terms of healing the human body, you only have to go to the studies that have been done on something called spontaneous remission. It is another aspect of medicine that doctors and the traditional allopathic community do not want to talk about because they don't understand it, because it doesn't fit the model of the Newtonian paradigm. In other words, if somebody has stage 4 cancer and for whatever reason, independent of chemical treatment, they suddenly go into remission, it baffles the traditional mindset. But if you look at the studies, there is one very strong common denominator. And no, it's not meditating or going vegan or plant-based diet or crystals or any of that stuff. We had studies that had people doing all sorts of different things. And sometimes it worked for the vegans, sometimes it worked for the meat eaters. There was no consistency. But what was consistent in 2 major studies was that the people who started to go into remission got in touch with a profound sense of gratitude. In other words, they stopped fighting their condition, they came to terms with mortality and let go emotionally of a lot of what may have been causing the cancer to come in the first place. Now again, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not here to give medical advice, but I do know that it's easy to spot the patterns of the cancer patients that I've had the privilege of being able to work with in hospices that I've been able to work at, and essentially the power of forgiveness, the power of letting go, the power of gratitude, not the power of vitamin X, vitamin Y, or whatever it may be. But the emotional release is what allowed the cancer in a lot of the terminal cases to then go into remission. Mind over matter? What other explanation can you give? Now, the second key to being able to manifest very quickly is clarity. We know clarity is power, specificity is power. But let's liken that to a light bulb. If you take a 100-watt light bulb, that will light up a room. But if you take the same 100 watts and put it into a laser, it will cut through steel. Now, I don't care how good your 100-watt light bulb is, you can shine it all day long at steel, it's not going to do anything. And most people have, with the energy they have, and all of the stuff they think about, are walking through life not being able to produce anything. But if they take that same energy and they harness it with clarity, which really focuses your energy onto what it is that you want, you're going to start to produce results. If you can shout above the noise to tell the non-physical, and I don't care what label you use, universe, divine, God, I'm not into labels, but there is an intelligence there that governs this rule set. And if you have the ability to speak through the crowd or noise, because most people do that the wrong way. Have you noticed? Most people are very specific about what they don't want. And the reason for that is because the heart and mind get aligned very quickly when it comes to fear. We still have a middle and reptilian brain that is constantly on the lookout for dinosaurs, barbarians, etc. So if we notice something that's scary, which is the job of the mainstream media to make sure it exists in our mind, then we get focused very much on what we don't want, whatever the drama of the day happens to be, and then wonder why we don't manifest something that has its basis in fulfillment, joy, love. You get the idea. But clarity is power. What is it that you really want? Now, I'm not talking about the front part of the brain. That's always going to tell you that you want more money, you want a better body, you want a car, relationship, what have you. I'm talking about your heart. What is it that your heart really wants? What are you passionate about? What lights you up? What would make you get up early and stay up late? Not out of guilt, duty, or obligation, but out of making your heartstrings sing. When you start getting in line with that, and walking a path more of your truth rather than what somebody else expects from you, you can start to manifest very quickly. Now, the third step is usually where most people go wrong, what we call pray and move your feet. You've got to take action in this world. But most people use that way too much. In other words, they're trying to grab hold of their desires by the throat and sort of say, come, work with me, I need you. They get out, they hustle, they work too hard, they're not lazy. And as a result, they tend to push what it is away. And if you look at any of the spiritual masters or any of the people that are somewhat enlightened in this area, the same theme comes back again and again. It's the theme of surrender. And I interpret that through practicing what I call conscious non-resistance. You've heard it in many ways, let go and let God, the art of allowing. And I like to personify that in a way that makes it easy to understand. See, it's called having a chief how officer, because if you have a chief finance officer, you don't do your own accounts. You don't do your own audit. You've got somebody on payroll that you pay that'll actually get that done. If you have a gardener, you pay the gardener. They're the ones that are taking care of the garden. You're not out there saying, hey, move out of the way, let me do it. But what if you had a chief how officer, i.e., something greater than you, and you handed over your desires, what you had clarity about, to your chief how officer? What would happen is you would then start to let go of the need for control, which is a key part of the process. Let go of the need for control, and then the chief how officer's job is to give you nudges, insights, inspiration that'll allow you to then act on what your next move is towards your desires. It's not about sitting on your backside, meditating, and then saying, oh, I'll just manifest something without action on my part. No. You want to win the lottery, you've got to buy a ticket. But when it comes to thinking, oh, I'll just hope, manifest checks in the mail, you usually get an eviction notice. What will happen if you want more money is you surrender the how, you know exactly what you want, and by getting yourself out of the way, handing the how over to the chief how officer, you will be then presented with opportunities, people, business opportunities, different scenarios that you can then act on that will then realize a manifestation of money, which other people will call luck or coincidence. So if something happens once, it's an incident. Twice, coincidence. But if it happens more than twice, it's usually based upon a pattern that is governed by laws. I'm sharing 3 of those with you right now. Now, the opposite of surrendering or the art of allowing is anxiety, the need for control, getting stressed, impatient, demanding, trying to force things. So just be mindful which side of the fence, because that'll cut it off. For example, if I go out and snatch the shears out of the gardener's hand, he's not going to be doing anything else, right? He's going to sit there thinking, okay, you go figure it out. And so many people, when they try to practice the art of allowing, when it doesn't look as if it's going their way, there's, hang on, let me take back over control and go out and hustle. You get the idea. Now, if you really want to learn how to apply all of these steps and get some distinctions and put it into a way where you can live daily through unfolding miracles, where you can cut stress out of your life, I have a manifesting masterclass I'd love to share with you. Click the link below. I'll take you through several more key steps and also show you how to apply this in individual circumstances that really gets results fast, so you can get the references that you need to start really buying into this as a way of life, rather than another YouTube video that you clicked on that you didn't take action on. If you really want to step up the game and get into this way of living that's helped me manifest out of nowhere millions of dollars, different ideas for businesses that couldn't have come out of my brain, then click the link below, and I can't wait to share with you the secrets to manifesting mastery.